I think I'll go back, like in my childhood. I'll go back to when I was a kid and I was traveling a lot because of my father's occupation. So my father was working for government. He was like civil engineer, and so we had to travel across the coastal areas of Balochistan, especially, which is like some of those areas are very untouchable now, and they're very diverse. Balochistan is one of the most diverse provinces of Pakistan. They're like my hometown. People would speak like three languages. Everyone is like multilingual, bilingual. Like for instance, I'm a Pashto speaker because of my father, but my mother speaks Farsi, but my friends speak Bravi, and my other friends speak Balochi. So then it was very much around these different languages, but they're mostly like Iranic languages, having some sort of relationship with each other. But then again, coming back to this idea of like how things change, how differences affect me. So when being a kid, when I was traveling, I saw those coastal areas, those lines, and I would see a mountain, and then I would compare it to the mountain in Quetta. There's always this comparison, or what's the similar difference, or what's the different similarities in things. So I was always with that lens. I was looking at things, and I think there's this feeling of mnemonic spaces that painting creates. You're looking at Regent Park as a starting image, but then you're also reaching Lawrence Garden, Lahore, through that painting. So it's a kind of portal. So for me, there's never an intent of bringing east into my work or bringing west into my work. I think everything is kind of coexisting in the practice. And I think when I was in Lahore, there was a lot of Quetta in the work. Naturally, Quetta would come in the work, even though I'm in Lahore. But that's the thing. I met this writer recently who's like 85-year-old. I read some of his books being a kid, so I met him like recently from Lahore, Mustansar Hussain Tarad, and when I told him I'm from Quetta, and he saw some paintings, and he said, okay. Then he talked about base. He was like, a poet from Ravi can never write about Satluj. Like a Ravi River poet can always write about Ravi's experiences. Even though you take him to some exile or something, there's always the Ravi stays in, because that's the base. So same thing he thought with my work, that he could all see because he's traveled a lot throughout Pakistan and he always wrote travelogues. So he could sense that soil, he could sense that feeling. So sometimes you look at the painting and you can smell the environment actually. I think whatever I do, there's always this hint of the base, rather Quetta or Lahore or London, but I think there's some sort of a mnemonic space that's very common with other viewers as well. Like some water bodies that I've painted, some of the viewers think that maybe it's Hampstead Heath in some areas, but then some people think no, maybe it's some area in Morocco, but then it's coming from Balochistan, but then I'm looking at it here. So yeah, I think there's always this so many spaces in one space. I think also like the intent is always to create a space, but that space is amalgamation of so many spaces. So that the space that's created or that's kind of being hinted in the painting is actually, it doesn't exist. So it's a manifestation of the thought. It's the space that's not there actually. It's an illusion. So I do accept the illusion aspect of painting. I always like did that. Sometimes I don't need an image to start a work of if it's a landscape or a character, because there's been a lot of study from life, and I used to paint from life in Quetta, go to the mountains with my teacher over there, with my friends over there, and there was this culture of painting from life and finding a spot and painting for 2 days for that particular hour, or sometimes we would call it like one-day painting. So I think that practice is still there. So I do believe like there's a lot of thought involved whenever I'm making a work, because I think in the making the thought is embedded, because I don't really rely on an image to follow, to trace, and to just keep that information as it is. I might start with an image, but then the image is lost, and then the surface is more important for me, and that surface can take me in so many different spaces. It depends what you're going through, how's the life at that time. So you look at a painting and then you realize like what were the emotions at that time, how did you feel, what was going on. So, and that's why I think there's always like art, like an artist's artwork always reveals a lot about artists. So the intentions of artists are always there, and that's why it's a very tough thing. It's very kind of, it takes a lot of courage to show your work in public, or to be able to release a work at a certain point. So I have to make sure what work is going to be released and what work is going to be shown, because it's very fragile, you know. You can't just show everything, but the sequences of the thought are very important for me. So after one work I would have painted like maybe 3 years ago, but if that falls in that kind of screenplay, I might show it in some way with the current body of work. But if it doesn't fall there, then I would take a long time to think like when to show that. Because in studio, by the way, there's a lot of things going on. I mean, there are like maybe around 2 solo shows right now. But then again, do I want to release it now? Do I want to, like for instance, this work over here has stayed with me for like last 3-4 years, 3 years actually, because this has become an anchor for other works. So it's like the thought that you don't want to let go. And there are multiple of the paintings that I have with me and that will stay with me for a longer while, because they're kind of anchor. They anchor the whole like process of the studio. Something like cricket, you know, when you need an anchor batter in the test match, or sometimes in like one days as well. So these are like anchor players in a way, and some of them are like at the back. I've put them at the back, but then and some paintings I let go at that time, maybe for showing or something, and then you realize later that maybe I should have kept those works, you know? So these thoughts are always there, and yeah. I don't know, I kind of don't really think about what viewer will take away from that show. You know, what I think about painting, like whenever I went to Prado Museum recently, and I saw some of the paintings in person, live in front of me, like Goya's last 14 paintings. And what I thought about was, I saw that amazing Velasquez and some amazing El Greco. But what I really thought about was not the message, was not the story they're trying to tell. It was a little chain of thought that remains. And the chain of thought was kind of there 400 years ago, 300 years ago. And that same chain of thought is remaining for me to come and absorb as an artist. And sometimes you just carry on that chain of thought. So it doesn't have to be like very revolutionary or very kind of something that changes the world at once. It's just a little hint, little thought that might remain with some viewer. Like this poet from India, Dushyant Kumar, I really admire his one poem, or maybe it's a ghazal. So it talks about the flame actually. So the flame should, and one of my paintings is titled on that poetry. It's about the flame. So it says like, if I cannot carry it, then you must. Yeah. So in a way, the artist or the poet can just carry it for a while, then they cannot carry it. Yeah. Then someone must, like, you know, some kid that sees the work, or someone who resonates. Yeah. Not everyone, but someone who resonates. And I think, so I'm in the work as well, I'm trying not to say anything, but somehow put the thought there, you know, and thought automatically comes in the work. I don't have to really put an effort to like say that, but the thought is always embedded, and I believe in like natural flow of the work, and natural flow of paint, natural flow of ideas. I think that's how somehow the things are coming together, and then I think of like how to sequence it. Yeah. So some work will be, as I said, from 2022, and some work will be for 2026, but in one show. That's what I like about making art. This is the umpire. Yeah. This is the study of the umpire. Yeah. That was a big work, right? Yeah, it was a huge work. So there's another version of umpire. Like, I've taken the umpire to another ground now. So it's like you take your characters to different spaces, you know. So I've taken the umpire to another ground. So the umpire work actually, it has those subliminal ideas in it. Like it talks about so many things. It talks about the law. It talks about the decision making. It talks about religion on so many levels. But then it's purely coming from cricket and my love for cricket. So, and it has 2 to 3 people in this one work. There's Steve Buckner. I think he was this classic umpire. Growing up, I saw him umpiring. But then my club umpire, who was very petite, who was really thin, and he almost looked like the air might just take him away, might blow in the air. But then when I came to London, I thought, I have to. So when you're distant from this one aspect, one thought that you thought back in Lahore, and I was distant from that, and I came to London, and then I realized, I have to do that. I have to bring that work in that painting, that idea in my painting. And then I asked my friend to model for me, and I did some drawings. So this is one of the studies.
Yeah.
And then, so it is not one person now. It's like amalgamation of like different people, and it will keep changing. Yeah, but then it is about decision making, and I kept the title umpire because it's very much like empire.
Yeah.
In a way. I think resemblance isn't only about features.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we think like this person looks like my brother, yeah, or looks like my friend. But then sometimes some people have a gesture like your friend, They walk in a certain way, you think like, oh, that person has like similar style. So I'm more believe in the characteristics of like the behavior, and I think some behaviors are very much similar to some people that we know. So features are initially, being as a kid, I was always interested in features and the resemblance. So I would bring the resemblance and stuff. But now it's more about like just a little, like someone standing like this or someone standing like this. What does that remind you of? That little thing, like just a step ahead. Someone stands like this. Someone stands like this. Those little things really I make me think about human behavior and collective consciousness as well. Like, how did we all think to pose for a picture like this?
Yeah.
Because in Velasquez's paintings and the old paintings, like there's this thing of the ownership, and how does this symbolize the ownership? Like, where is this coming from? In my practice, like I reside in painting. I primarily paint, like I come to linen, oil on linen, or oil on canvas or panel. But then there's a lot of detour that I take. So sometimes, when you want to reach home, but then you can go straight to your home, but sometimes you take a detour and the mind clears and you think about some other things. So these are my detours. So I kind of discuss an idea on a different level, like more like, material level. So there's this, like I do some wood carvings. They look like books to me, but then they're covered with paint as well. And then
you do actually use books as well.
Yeah, I use like book covers, found discarded book covers, and also like I've done a series on like cigarette packs, like the ones that are discarded and used. And I think that somehow makes me think more about an idea and about economy of art and economy of thought as well. So it's very kind of, there's an interesting thing, like how much thought would I let go and how much do I consume from like one idea. But then so most of these cigarette packs, they have the portraits of the singers, philosophers, writers, poets that I admire. Based on, like, it's not identically her, but it started from Musharat Nazir's portrait. But then this also makes me think, reminds me of my mother's hairstyle in the 80s. So then that's also another friend of mine who's here now. So they are like different people, as you said, like that idea of. But then I was thinking of doing, starting with the poets and the people that I have consumed, ideas or philosophers that I've read and consumed. I've inhaled and exhaled. So it's more like the cigarette pack, and it's like the idea has gone in and come out. You've inhaled, exhaled it, and then it just stays somewhere. So it's that the objectivity of that idea actually. So yeah, panel now. This is linen, but linen is stretched on a panel, and then it becomes like a document itself. So it's displayed on a wooden ledge. Sometimes I use a wooden ledge, so it becomes like a little library kind of a thing. So it becomes more like a book rather than a painting. but it has this object quality to it. Yeah, there are a lot of things going on, and it's a mess right now in my studio. And I think, yeah, this mess generates some other thoughts, and I might take like 2-3 months more to bring a new body of work.